At long last, guys, the very highly anticipated banner, the limited guaranteed selector banner, is coming to Watcher of Realms tomorrow. And in many ways, this could be the most consequential banner many players ever pull on in the history of their account, because you're getting a guaranteed limited unit at 200, and you're getting the one that you're hunting for, the one that you think will help your account the most. But how do you know which one will help your account the most? In this video, I will rank the 10 limited heroes that have come to Watch of Realms in the game's history, ranking them from 10 to 1, and adding a little color on each along the way. But then, in my second video today, I'm going to rank the top 12 awakenings for these top limited units from 1 to 12, top to bottom, so you can feel fully informed when you decide to pull for either a new hero or maybe dupes for awakenings, or a mix of pulling for dupes and using unpolished soulstones. This is going to be a list in the second video for the min-maxers. If your goal here is to catch them all and get all the limited units in the game and get the best ones possible that you do not have, use the list in this video and just pick the highest ranked limited unit you do not yet own. However, if you do not care about collecting them all right now and you want to know which unit or which unit's awakenings would be the most impactful for my account, definitely watch the second video today. But regardless, if you're watching this in the future and this banner's not live right now, but you just want to learn a lot about the limited units in this game and their awakenings, watch both of these videos. So without further ado, exclusive heroes return. Select one of the previous exclusive limited heroes, excluding Moradin, because we just had his rate up 2 weeks ago, for time limited rate up and guaranteed within 200 summons. Quick note, I will still be ranking Moradin on both of these lists, but I will gray out his name so the people watching right now know he is not an option to select tomorrow or this weekend when you head into this banner. So the banner is already live in the game. You can see it right now. Let's pop on the events, and here we go. Exclusive lucky pick. They've got this beautiful little summoning tree, and you're going to have the opportunity to select any one of these limited units to be your limited banner. Once you make your selection, it will function like all previous limited banners. The unit will be guaranteed within your first 200 summons, and then after that, it becomes a normal 20x banner for that character. So without further ado, we have our two lists prepared. We have our overall top 10 limited heroes. We're going to go from 10 to 1, and then we have our top 12 limited awakenings. This list will begin with the base awakenings for the absolute top tier units, but very quickly it will evolve into getting the A1 for this unit or the A3 for this unit, so on and so on. After these top 12 awakenings, you'll see in the second video, I just encourage you to go back to this list we're covering right here and pick the highest ranked limited you do not yet own. All right, guys, I am Fastidious. This is a lot of content today, so let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
All right, folks, let's kick things off with number 10. Many of you can guess who this is going to be. Of course, it is Gwendolyn. Gwendolyn was the first limited unit ever added to the game, and our limited exclusive 200 guaranteed. It used to be 250 back then, whatever you want to call it, and she's just not that good. The kid is very interesting. I would say she has a lot of high potential for two things. One, to excel in future content where we need a lot of shields a lot of the time, and two, to get buffed. Even as a shielder, I do find her underwhelming. Shields are not something we need specifically for a lot of content in this game, but even that being said, her shields are too single target focused, and the other benefits they bring, which I'll break down in a sec, just feel like not even close to enough. I would be really surprised if they ever rerun Gwendolyn and they do not buff her before that, because her kit feels very old, very incomplete, and like I said, there's no content we need her for right now. With her current kit, if there was content where you just strictly need tons of shields, she would at least be very viable. But even then, I don't know if she'd be like such a superstar compared to an A1 Hearts or certainly Draylin, who's coming out this weekend at the time of filming, who can do some pretty nice shields with the ultimate, with the overflow healing. She's definitely a good shielder, but she's not super duper duper god tier, and shielding is not something we specifically need for any content in this game. If that content comes and she gets a buff, she could start being very, very relevant. So for sheer uniqueness, she's pretty special. But if we look over here, the talent is very nice. Her shields naturally have a 10% boost This is not just shields she puts out. Just when she's there, shields all allies receive essentially are 10% stronger. And when those allies have health less than 50%, those shields are 20% stronger. But after that, we've got single target shields from the basic. We've got a big single target shield, a very, very big one, to be fair, from the ultimate. Though besides that single target giant shield, the AoE shield that comes around it is just a half strength shield of the main target shield, and it is only directly adjacent allies. Also, these shields only last 10 seconds, which for a lot of content is normal, but for how hard it is for her to get out so many shields, I think these would have to last longer. Then if we go to the two passives, whenever a shield for an ally is gone, so it's broken or it expires, the target that was wearing that shield will be healed for 5% at max skill ups of their max HP, so not even Gwendolyn's. Really not that special. And then finally, this passive I don't like at all. Going to deal damage after a shield disappears or expires or is broken. Going to be 10% of Gwendolyn's max HP. It goes up to 15%. She has high max HP for a healer, but pretty low in general at 12.5. Shockingly low, even, I would say. This is not any kind of true damage or anything. You're not building crit on her, so this damage is nothing. And then she's got a freeze to 2 surrounding enemies near where the shield breaks, but the freeze is for half a second. So the kit, you can see, it's just not a lot. If you do get her A3, she gets a little better because the AoE shield she puts out with the ult is not half strength of the main target. It is full strength, but then you need 4 copies of Gwendolyn because you're certainly not going to be putting unpolished soul stones into her. All in all, she very clearly is the worst one we've ever had. And I'll tell you, from 9 and up, we have strictly relevant heroes. The amount of relevancy climbs as we go further and further up this list, but there's a huge space, in my opinion, between number 10, Gwendolyn, and number 9, who is going to be Dahlia. Dahlia is definitely very good. She's just not special for anything in the game right now. There are a couple pieces of content she certainly excels in. Gear Raid 1, she is very strong. And then I'd say Artifact Material Raid 22 is her best piece of content in the game. Historically, there were some GVG maps she really shined in. But at this point, her big selling point is going to be this range, which Ingrid has and then exceeds. Obviously, you need to get Ingrid, but I mean, Dahlia's damage doesn't even hold a candle to Ingrid. And then it's going to be her consistent AoE poison and her consistent slows. But that all being said, we can get that from other sources now as well. We have all the new poisoner units. Maybe no one does it with the consistent AoE uptime Dahlia does, but as it stands right now, there's no need for that. I guess her and Phelan are able to do it. Her damage is good. It is quite strong, especially in the content she excels in, but it is not top tier. So she basically is a very good progression unit, or the kind of unit you have if you're missing top options. When you compare her to heroes higher on the list who are definitive meta top options for many things in this game, she cannot be ranked much higher. I don't know what they would have to do to make Dahlia better, maybe just up some of the multipliers, but all in all, the damage is very good. I used her just the other day in a 122 and 123 takeover, and she basically filled the Ingrid role for an account that doesn't have Ingrid, but she was still like the 4th DPS on my comp, which was a ton of damage, but she's not top tier. All in all, I just think unless there's some kind of PvP content we need all these AoE poisons and the AoE slow stuff for, or they buff her, she can't be higher than this. She's always just going to be a very good, very specific progression unit. So that'll be Dahlia at number 9. Number 8 may surprise some of you. This is going to be Captain Reeve. Captain Reeve is very good. Like I said, once we pass Gwendolyn, all these units are very good. The thing with Captain Reeve, he's just not the best at anything. The one piece of content I would say he excels at the most is going to be the Conqueror Codex boss, but that actually has evolved to be the second easiest Codex boss after Styx in the game, in my opinion. There are so many solutions to it now, and as good as he is there, and he can easily get you triple S as your main DPS, I still use him as my main DPS, you don't need to. And he's not going to get you into the top 100 or anything like that, not without a lot of other things. We've had units come out like Eris, and of course recently Valara, a whole bunch of other solutions to melee AoE. We even have a melee AoE defender in Malvira, who in my opinion is just a lot better than Reeve at almost all content. She's HP based, so she doesn't have to double dip into stats. She has unkillability, this, that, and the other. Malvira's kit is just so much better. She gives herself many damage reductions. Reeve is just kind of here doing a lot of damage, being kind of tanky, being attack based, and then of course having very, very, very good slows. This passive over here is very good. It is a permanent slow to up to 10 enemies in range with max skill ups. It's a 50% slow. If you get him to a 3, it becomes a big 75% slow when he's ulting. It's very nice. The damage can be quite good, but nothing here is top tier. I actually don't know what content would have to be added for Reeves' current kit to be top meta. I think he's basically just a very good progression unit as a tanky DPS. I think it would take a buff for him to become anything definitive, anything top end, high end for content in this game. But he is very good. He looks about as cool as any unit in the game. So if you're just a collector, this is an excellent choice. Finally, I will say he has some pretty dang good stuns with his ultimate, and at A1, they get way better. Every 4 attacks, he's going to have another stun. This lasts a full second. So compare that to the half-second freeze you sometimes get out of Gwendolyn. It is pretty dang good, but like I said, he's not meta for anything. At number 7, this may also surprise some people. This is going to be Falsia. I'm fairly high on Falsia post-buff. She's just good now. Like, she's not super duper top tier for anything. There are certain comps where you can beat endgame content with her as a piece. Things may change even more once they buff Elder. Could she become more meta? We'll see. But as it stands now, she just hits really hard post buff, and she has the dual faction membership. No longer just a Northerner. Now she is an esotericist. So you can see her really shred on some esotericist comps. She's got a lot of cool potential. She's the only unit in the game that has constant hybrid damage, switching off between magic and physical damage. Additionally, she just has a ton of true damage in her kit. She hits really hard. She's not going to hit as hard as the top fighters on this list that we'll get to shortly, but she's very, very good. And unlike Reeve, where it's hard for me to see how he can rise up this list with new content, I could see that happening with Falsia. If ever we do need hybrid damage in a context outside of like Abyss, or we need something with just tons of instances of true damage, she would be top tier for that. And like I said, if Northerner can become more meta for certain things, then she'll have a whole extra comp she can excel in. She is very, very, very good. If you ever see old lists of her, by the way, the part of the reason she's ranked so low is not just that she didn't get buffed in her kit, not just that she didn't have dual faction membership. She used to have only 1 tile range. She is so much more useful for progression now with her 2 tile range. She is no longer needed just for bosses. That being said, she hits hard. She's really good. Kind of simple as that. She also looks really cool. To be honest, most of the limited guaranteed units in this game look really cool. Moonton does an excellent job with that. At number 6, this is where we're getting one of our fallen queens, and this is Lust. Lust is very good. I almost put Falsia above her, but basically with Lust, the damage is absolutely pretty good. That's how I define it. She literally needs A5 for her damage to be top tier, and even still, even at A5, her damage pales in comparison to the top 2 fighters on our list, who you guys know who they'll be. You'll just have to see where they come up. It's going to be Kagiri and Wukong, and that's basically what happened to Lust. Her only real unique thing right now is she gives a great bond skill to Arrogance, and she gets a great bond skill from Arrogance, but her and Arrogance are not meta anymore for a lot of content. It is now Kagiri and Wukong. So she's the off meta for all this stuff. For her to deal the big damage, she does need that A5. So what is left? Besides the bond skill she gives Arrogance, who no longer is the king of the game like he used to be, and besides the bond skill she gets from Arrogance, and she is no longer a queen of the game like she used to be, what is it? It is basically just this passive agonizing delight. She gets a damage boost that is nice, but the key thing is the second part. If the targeted ally, because she can not just whip enemies for damage, she can also do a little bit of damage whipping her own allies into shape. If the targeted ally that she hits is a member of the Nightmare Council, there's a 40% chance, and this goes up to 60%, that she is going to restore 10% rage to the target. This for Nightmare comps is very unique, and this is the thing that has kept her at all relevant in the game. This is a unique way to earn rage regen. These are singular bursts, singular instances of rage regen, so this is not overriding or stacking or having any conflict with the rage regen you would get from someone like Hollow or Eloin. So it is effectively stacking, and it does allow you to cycle a lot faster if you're running Nightmare comps. We no longer need it like we used to. This used to be really, really meta in a lot of content, if you think back to when APOC 2 came out and things like that, but it is still really unique and still really good, and that is why she got the edge over Falsia for me on the list. But in terms of damage, she's just worse than Falsia, unless you have her A5. But again, that requires banners, getting 6 copies of Lust, because at this point, unless she gets a buff or something changes in the game, you will never put unpolished soulstones into her. She has reached the point where if you did put unpolished soulstones into her, I hope you use the reset book to get them back. Let me know if that was you in the comments. I know a lot of people ended up doing that. On to our top 5, and there's a pretty big jump here, I believe, from 6 to 5. And our number 5 is going to be this guy over here. We're going to have to gray him out because he's not available on this current banner, but it will be Moradin. Moradin is phenomenal. He is the kind of unit that no buff needed. He will scale incredibly well with certain future content if we need his kit. Someone that hits like an absolute truck, also has crazy support functionality, and can hop around the map. He has so much going on. He can hit so hard when you need him to. And then in content where he's not the hardest hitter, you can use him so strategically, pointing him away from a boss, things like that, to just give huge amounts of rage. I have a Morrigan guide coming out very soon that I've been working on, over 70k in Abyss 1. He is a freak there. He fits so nicely into both Nightmare and Esotericist comps. The amount of damage he does during his phases is very good. It's not that far off like a Sun Wukong, but also the support he's giving in the phase where he can't deal damage, when the boss is gold and you can only deal magic damage and he's got the physical immunity, Moradin becomes a tremendous support, truly tremendous. Shout out to my friend Behemoth. He did a comp featuring Numera with Moradin as an Esotericist unit, and he consistently was getting at least 1 extra, if not 2 extra ults out of Numera per magic cycle in Abyss because of the way Moradin was absolutely juicing her up with that rage regeneration that we get over here from the support side of the Prince of Darkness state. Moradin is very specific right now, but he is meta for certain things, and he has such a good kit, and he is so unique that I think he will age incredibly well. He definitely deserves this top 5 placement. Now, for number 4, I think we've got something pretty simple, pretty definitive, not too much to discuss. This is going to be Anora. In my opinion, the only argument would be, is Moradin 4 or is Anora 4? But because of a couple specifics that make Anora extra special, I do think at this point in the game, she gets the edge, though I would be surprised if Moradin doesn't pass her as we get more and more future content. Those are just my 2 cents looking ahead to the future. But as it stands now, I mean, she is a total queen. She has the argument to be the best AoE DPS for a lot of things in the game. Some people may be like, wow, Anora was so underrated. That is not true. I think everyone always rated her very high. And then people are just forgetting that she was already a high-rated unit and then got a pretty enormous buff. I think not enough was made about that at the time. I certainly didn't talk about it enough, but her buff brought her from being, oh, one of the good AoE DPS in the game, one of the good AoE mages, to the best for a lot of things. She is a freak. She cannot be debuffed. She also cannot be buffed. I find this to be a blessing. You don't have to worry about Diao Chan range and Dolores or Constance or Beelzebub or whatever. Anora is just going to shine like a queen in all content without any help from no one. It is that simple. She's a great summoner. She has great synergies. This passive over here, Agitation, is something that could grow very nicely with the game. She grants damage increase to other allied summons of 10%. Summoners are certainly a thing they've tried to make happen in a big way in this game. And then just on top of crazy bursty DPS, continuous damage as she keeps going, crowd control, this, that, and the other. If you have Ymmerit, the bond skill she gives Ymmerit is pretty freaking special. But on top of that, the bond skill Ymmerit gives her takes her to a whole nother level still. Getting Ymmerit turns her summon. Labor you will forever unlock in Anora's kit. Her bond skill, and in it, Labor now becomes Labor Ice. Labor is her summon. This is the dragon that attacks alongside her, and Labor Ice is just much better. Labor's doing 90% damage to 8 enemies in range. He gets 100% of Anora's attributes. Labor Ice is also getting 100% of Anora's attributes, but he's doing 110% base damage now. He has a 30% chance to inflict Winter's Bite, which is so annoying. He has a 15% increased damage to crowd control units. It is just a new thing, and Labor's how Anora does most of her damage, and Labor Ice is just a much better hero. You could think of it that way. The hero she now summons is vastly superior. So because of her bond skill with Ymmerit, because she's so easy to use and so unique for so much stuff, because she has the crowd control with the bond skill, the huge DPS, this, that, and the other, she also has excellent dual faction membership as a cultist and an esotericist. I think it's undeniable that Anora is one of the top units in this game right now. So she's going to be the number 4 on my list. For the top 3, we can just head to the Watchguard. For anyone that has not been playing Watcher of Realms for a while, you may not know that the Watchguard was definitively the worst faction in the game for probably about a year. But then they said, what if we made every good new unit in the game Watchguard? And there are a ton of examples of that, right? We've got Eris, we've got Lucius, we've got Talon, we of course have Ingrid, but 3 of the best examples are the 3 units we're about to talk about right now: Diao Chan, Kagiri, and Sun Wukong. These were 3 consecutive limited units. They all have at least dual faction membership in Watchguard. These 2 are Nightmare Watcher, and then Diao is Infernal Watcher. And these 3 are, at worst, top 10 non-lords in the game, and with Awakenings, they all just go completely bananas. So at number 3, it was hard deciding between 2 and 3. I'll explain why in one moment. But at number 3, I have placed Sun Wukong. So I would say at base Awakening, Sun Wukong is better than who we have above him. Is Kagiri 1 or 2? You'll have to see. But because we're getting enough unpolished soulstones today, and because so many players know to save them, I think a lot of people will rush their Kagiri to A3, and A3 Kagiri is much better, in my opinion, than A1 Sun Wukong or A3 Sun Wukong. So for that reason, I had to put Kagiri higher on this list. However, if you're just doing an apples-to-apples comparison, this unit when you first get him versus this unit, Kagiri sucks. Compared to Sun Wukong, Kagiri sucks. He's a great source of dispel, he has good dual faction membership, and he has pretty okay damage. Sun Wukong, right out of the box at A0, is like the best A0 DPS for a single target for bosses in the game. It's not even close. He also brings his own utility with his summons, with his stuns. He is excellent at A0. He gets a big boost at A3. We'll talk about this a lot in the next video. He now has additional chances to stun by his clones. When the clones go to trigger a stun, but the enemy is stun immune, you get extra bursts of damage. And finally, it becomes much easier to build up Sunder. And when you get Sunder, you start ignoring defense, you start hitting extra hard. This A3 is really special. And then finally, at his final form, when you get him A5, his ultimate is no longer an 18x hitter. It is now a 36x hitter. It is literally double damage, and on top of that, the passive damage increase he builds over time has its cap raised from 5 to 30, which is huge, and finally has extra chances to trigger his passive. He really is completely fully formed and OP at A5. Like I said, we'll dive more into that in the future videos, but all that being said, I would still take an A3 Kagiri over all of that, because the jump in DPS from A0 to A3 that Kagiri gets, no one has that jump from where they start to any Awakening in the entire game. Kagiri goes from being absolutely fine to being god tier with his A3. So even though Wukong probably has a more impactful A5 going from A3 to A5 than Kagiri does going from A3 to A5, we'll unpack this more in the next video. I just think because a lot of people are going straight to an A3 Kagiri, he had to be higher. But don't get it twisted. I feel like nowadays some people are like, should I reset my Sun Wukong? This guy is one of the couple god units in the game. He hits like a truck. He's so versatile. 2 amazing factions. His Awakenings scale him higher and higher and higher. A beautiful kit. He's good for so much content. He is so worthy of being top 3. And if this game didn't have these 2 units ahead of him, he would easily be number 1. But the 2 units ahead of him are a borderline problem in the game. So surprise, surprise, at number 2, we are going to have Kagiri. There's no way I could ever make a list like this and not place Diao Chan at number 1. She is so much better than all of these guys. I will die on that hill. The versatility, the specialness, the key problems she solves for almost every piece of content of the game is unmatched. But when it comes to bosses, when it comes to solving certain PvP things, when it comes to just having literally broken amounts of damage, because I do think Kagiri's a big problem for a lot of things in this game right now, you look to the guy, you look to the samurai, you look to Kagiri. He is crazy. At A0, he is absolutely fine. He's probably the best dispeller in the game. It's probably him and Talon, and then on top of that, very reliable damage. He can also avoid damage when you time out his parries. He is a very good, very strong unit. That all being said, he doesn't hit that hard. The second you get him A3, he hits the definition of that hard, and it is nuts. And I just think we're at the point where we don't have to evaluate him at A0. His A3 is that formative, and so many people are planning for it, that the A3 Awakening is what you're planning for, what you're looking ahead towards, and that's how we should evaluate him. So at A3, what happens? Well, he gets these permanent damage boosts. This was written very strangely when he first came out, and they made a couple edits after, and then we were like, wait, are these edits right? We can't be reading this right, but we were. So essentially, when he does his sweeping strike, this is the weaker of his two parries, his two counters, direct damage dealt for those 10 seconds will come with an additional instance of damage equal to 35% of that damage. So all the damage for those 10 seconds is receiving a 1.35x multiplier. Pretty good, right? Additionally, within 10 seconds after triggering Ember's Strike, so this is his better of the two, when he's in the parry position and he's struck within 3 seconds, he's now going to deal direct damage that inflicts 2 instances of 25% of the direct damage for the next 10 seconds. So it's basically a 1.5x multiplier. It's 2 additional instances of the 0.25x, so it's 1.5x total. However, as good as that already sounded, the last line is what breaks him in half, and I know this was a mistake. There's no way they'll ever change it now, but there's no way they could have ever meant this. But it is part of the game. Whenever either of these strikes triggers Swallow Counter, which is his chance to come back and hit them again, it's a 1 in 4 chance it will happen eventually in a long battle. It usually happens pretty dang fast. The corresponding effect of this strike becomes permanent, and these stack. So as soon as he's done a sweeping strike and just one time he swallow counters and hits them on the way back, that additional damage multiplier of 1.35x to all direct damage is forever applied for the rest of the battle. Additionally, whenever he does his Ember Strike and does the swallow strike counter on the way back, all direct damage from there on out will be paired with the 2 instances of 25% extra damage, so an additional 1.5x multiplier. The way you can think about it is, once he has triggered Swallow Counter on each of these moves for the remainder of whatever that battle is, and we obviously use him in a lot of long battles, a lot of boss content, stuff like that, he is receiving a 1.85x multiplier on literally all damage, and that is an end of the calculation multiplier. He's basically doing 2x damage, nearly. He's doing 85% more damage for the rest of the fight. He goes from, like I said, a pretty good DPS, maybe 5.5, 6 out of 10 DPS, to whatever that is, an 11 or 12 out of 10 DPS. He becomes completely god tier, and he's the best in the game. At A5, swallow counters are now guaranteed, so he always does the double hitter on the way back, so you're guaranteed to trigger this immediately in any battle, and then you're always getting the double damage. This is really good, but he's already so broken at A3. This is just something you work up to take him to that final level. In my opinion, it's not as big a jump as Sung Wukong and DPS going from A3 to A5, but in general, Kagiri is just the better unit, so maybe you want to just invest in the better unit. We'll fully unpack that in the next video, but that is going to be Kagiri. He is busted, he is broken. Finally, we've got Diao Chan. Diao Chan is, in my opinion, the single best non-lord in the game. It's between her and Eluin, but I do give her the slight edge because she's just the actual best in slot solution for almost every piece of content in this game. Everything we're talking about is Diao Chan when she is at A1. At A1, she permanently has her range increased. She starts with this diamond range, what we might call Dolores range, but then when you get her A1, she permanently earns Aelin range when Aelin's at full promotion. This crazy thing with all the corners filled out, and that really is all the difference for so much stuff. She is permanently doing the effect of whatever mode she's in for the entire time she's in it, in that giant range for the whole battle. So a lot of people are going to use her in the sorrow mode, the black mode. She just gets a ton of inspiration. She just forever boosts your DPS, full stop, plug and play, set it and forget it. She's the best inspiration, best buffer unit in the game for this reason. It is 100% uptime. She gives penetration to the units that need it the most. It all scales brilliantly. It is completely busted. Also, for certain content, you might switch her into the damage mitigation mode, the healer mode, and what you'll really do in a lot of stuff once you start min-maxing is briefly switch her to the white mode, to that hope mode, and then switch her back, and she just starts filling so many roles for you. She is so good in so much content. She is absolutely broken top tier for all progression. She is phenomenal in every single boss, and she's amazing in all modes in Arena. Whether you want to argue she's absolutely the best unit needed for every piece of content, you cannot argue that when you need this, she is the best unit to fill it. Unless it's something very specific like Beelzebub in Gear Raid 1, something like that. She's the absolute queen of this game. She brings it all to the table. It is completely and utterly tremendous. On top of all of that, if you pick up Lubu this weekend, if you're summoning for him when this video is coming out, she gets extra damage reduction, so she becomes extra tanky against bosses. She is completely ridiculous. I'll quickly say her A3 is very good, but it is not needed. For any normal player, you get that A1. This is the best awakening in the game. It's the quickest, easiest investment decision you'll ever make, and then she just becomes the best character on your account, very likely, for most things for the remainder of your time playing the game until something more OP is introduced. So there we have it, guys. guys, if you want to learn about every single awakening and how I rank every limited awakening in the game, look forward to this video coming out later today. But for now, this has been all limiteds ranked in Watcher of Realms from worst to best, the top 10. I hope you learned something, and I hope this helps. Again, if you're not hunting for meta stuff and awakenings, this, that, and the other, who should you pull this weekend on the limited selector banner? Take the unit with the highest number next to their name that you do not own and select them. Thank you for watching. Thank you to R-Type for editing this video. I've been Fastidious. Share with your mother, and we'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.